Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Saw 10. This movie is directed by Kevin Gertrude, who previously directed Saw 6, Saw 7, and Spiral. This movie stars Tobin Bell. The plot of this movie takes place between Saw 1 and Saw 3. I believe if you look online, the synopsis I think says between Saws 1 and 2. However, this is a prequel movie. A flashback to John Kramer, who's been suffering from terminal cancer, and he only has months to live. And he hears about this experimental new drug surgery combination. So after reaching out to the doctors and with all this inspiration and hope behind this process, John Kramer is cured of his cancer. But he soon finds out that the doctors, the surgery, and the whole operation was a scam. And something tells me that of all the people you don't want to mess with, Jigsaw is at the top of that list. Going to this movie, I was very excited. Not only because this was a Saw film and I love that franchise, but we were going to get the man himself, Tobin Bell, back in a majority role. After Saw 3, all of the movies, except for Spiral, feature John Kramer, but only in flashbacks. And those became the reasons why people wanted to see those movies. Is, if they like the carnage candy and the gore and the violence and the traps, that's one thing. But I actually liked the plot of these movies. And John Kramer was the heart and soul of the Saw franchise. And so when I found out that this was going to be about John Kramer, I had to go see this. Now, yeah, I knew because it was the 10th film in a franchise that it may not be the strongest, but I was excited nonetheless. So having seen this movie, was Saw 10 everything I wanted it to be? For the most part, yes. Tobin Bell definitely carried this movie. I do have one gripe about it, but it's something that can be overlooked. So, did I enjoy Saw 10 overall? I did. And here's why. I'm going to start with the acting in this movie. Tobin Bell as John Kramer, Jigsaw, hasn't missed a beat. Yes, you can tell that he's older from when we first saw him in Saws 2 and 3, but he's an older actor. It's going to happen. He definitely was convincing and believable as John Kramer, the cancer patient. And this movie did a couple things that I appreciate. And one of them is that they showed us a different side of John Kramer. We got to see a happy, hopeful John Kramer. Something we hadn't seen in the other movies. Usually he's brooding or he's upset or he's just, you look at him and just see pure evil. Here, we got to see him smile. We actually got to see him cry at one point. So that was really neat. And the characteristics of John Kramer, they didn't go anywhere because there's, I'll say, another addition to this movie where you see John Kramer as not only this cancer patient, but also this father figure to somebody else. And it shows that he's a caring man. I also liked how this movie focused so much on John Kramer that it kind of did something that I've always been curious about when you have a villain in a movie or an evil force. Kind of like, all right, so when the bad guys are not being bad guys, what are they doing day to day? What are they doing on their time off when they're not, talking to a hero or scheming a plan? And there's scenes where it just shows John Kramer sleeping on the couch, receiving a phone call. Just mundane things that I was like, you know what? That's a nice touch. Because a lot of times I wonder how villains act when they're not being villainous. This movie also does something interesting where, much like the Don't Breathe movies, the first film portrayed Stephen Lang's character as, the bad guy, the evil guy. But then the sequel kind of showed us the opposite. It made you care for the main character. And that's what this movie does. It makes you care and sympathize for John Kramer. There's a couple scenes where, you actually feel for him. And you go right into the Jigsaw mindset of, oh, these people are going to pay and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. Which, like John Kramer does at times. And, these people in this movie have every right to feel that way. So, John Kramer, Tobin Bell, great job. Now, there are a couple side characters in this movie. One of them is someone that I knew was going to be in the movie, but I didn't know under what capacity. They were fine. I kind of felt like they were a little forced because of the time frame this movie takes place in, but hey, they were still in character. They did their job well. You can tell they're older and had some work done because, well, this is almost 10 years later since we saw them last, but still, they were fine. The antagonists in the movie, they were very kind of one note. You have these people where, the acting is not great and they're kind of one note. But, as victims in this movie or as the perpetrators or as the bad guys, if you will, there's not a whole lot there. And there doesn't need to be because all we really want to see them do is struggle to survive. Now, the overall tone of this movie felt like a Saw movie. You had your main character, you had build up, and then you have that moment where they wake up in a room tied to something, strapped to something, attached to a machine, what have you. It felt like a Saw movie. When the character is going through the Saw traps, you have the quick camera cuts, you have the timer, you have the ticking, you have the screams, you have all of it. This whole thing felt like a Saw movie. My only issue with this film was the end of it. The end of this movie, tonally, felt like a completely different movie. You had all this dark, brooding, nice revenge type Saw movie, and then the very end of the movie comes, and you're like, what? What am I watching? It feels so left field. It's a little too happy for my taste. Now, granted, this is a prequel movie, so we know where the characters end up, but still, it was a little too like, wait, that's the end? Like, we got Billy the Puppet, we got Jigsaw, and we even got the epic Saw music, but the way the last scenes in the third act go, it's like, okay, I get you just need to wrap this part of the story and this chapter up, but I just felt they could have done it a little better. Also, this film does a couple things, like I said, that are different. You have a character that I will say not maybe John Kramer's match, like maybe not, a yin to his yang, but you have someone that's, I guess, not at all petrified and mortified of his traps and who he is. There's a character that actually kind of stands up to Jigsaw and just, calls him out on stuff, which was interesting. There's also something they did where you see a character who deserves punishment, and you see inside John Kramer's mind of how he would devise a trap to punish this person. Now, whether he was imagining this or it happens later on, it's unclear, but I thought it was an interesting sequence. Also, this movie has a mid-credit scene, which I really enjoyed. So because the Saw music was there, this felt like a Saw film, but it did things differently. It wasn't just run-of-the-mill like Saw's, 5, 6, and 7 were. This did something unique, and this is a film that I think all Saw films will enjoy. So because of that, I'm going to give Saw X or Saw 10 a B. So until next time, guys.